Hello everybody and welcome back to Level 30 Games. It felt like the original Hyrule Warriors was an off-brand, shot-in-the-dark effort to get software to support to the then-fledgling Wii U system, and has now officially turned into a surprising little franchise. But does a series with the depth and lore of the Zelda universe work when merged with a series known for mindless button mashing? Find out as we take a look today at Hyrule Warriors: Age of Calamity. As always, if you're not part of the Level 30 Club, please consider subscribing to our channel as we try and hit a nice mix of content that always has the busy adult gamer in mind. If you enjoy this video, a simple like is appreciated and will certainly help us out too. As a prequel to Breath of the Wild, Age of Calamity warps us back 100 years to the onset of the Great War between Hyrule, the hordes of monsters and guardians, and of course, Calamity Ganon. It's a great place to start, honestly, as seeing what things were like 100 years before your Breath of the Wild adventure is pretty cool. My only issue with this story setup is that if you played Breath of the Wild, then you know the outcome. Now for me, that didn't weaken my enjoyment of the game at all, but you can get a sense of whether or not this would deflate any of the dramatic tension as you move through the story. The catch here, of course, muddling things for longtime Zelda fans, is that, spoiler alert, cover your ears, this happens in an alternative timeline. The fun side, perhaps, is with this, and Breath of the Wild 2 on the way, we are seeing the emergence of a new timeline split, one where Calamity Ganon is defeated and one where he is not. Ah, the Zelda timeline. Could you be any more confusing? The threads of story in Age of Calamity are enough to drive you forward, but never really break any substantially meaningful ground. And the thing is, I don't think this is the type of game that needs that. It was nice seeing new cutscenes with the large cast of characters, even if some of them were just plain silly.
Yiga, assemble! Me excluded, of course.
Basically, this is a game you come to for fun nods to the main Zelda story, not to be swept off your feet in dramatic fashion and knocked out by twists and turns. It's the perfect backdrop to serve the game that this is, a hacky-slashy romp. Gameplay-wise, there is a surprising amount of depth, or at least more so than I'd originally thought for a Musou game. If you're not familiar with Musou games or the Warriors franchise, the term comes from the original Dynasty Warriors game in Japan, Sengoku Musou, shortened to Musou to describe the genre. It is in essence an extreme version of hack and slash where you fight hordes of enemies, sometimes racking up kills in the hundreds or thousands. Traditionally, these games have a very simple combat system with combos that are quite literally pressing the same button several times. Even as you evolve these combos, they don't get too intricate. For example, your light attack combo might go from YYYY to YYYYY. Yeah, it's that simple. Where Age of Calamity mixes things up is in its dash attack, hold attacks, special attacks, elemental rods, and of course, rune abilities. Yes, Magnesis, Remote Bombs, Stasis, and Cryonis all make a return here, and work similarly to how they do in Breath of the Wild within the confines of a Musou battle system. And some of them feel awesome to use. There is a cooldown meter too, so you just can't go bombing the hell out of everybody. All these options made the combat less repetitive and tons of fun. In fact, feeling slightly OP added to the badassery, as I was excited to take on any challenge. Playing on normal, I can say most of the levels aren't too challenging even when encountering a boss fight. Once you recognize the attack patterns, you plan accordingly and try and land flurry strikes when the time is right. Breaking their weak point gauge before the enemy is drained of health allows you to do a weak point smash, a supercharged over-the-top badass attack that deals massive damage. It should come as no surprise that Link is not the only playable character this time around, as Musou games are also known for their large supporting cast. Of course, you would expect Zelda, Impa, and the champions to join the fray, and they do, but I'll leave some of the other characters out of mention that you play as, and you fight to avoid discovering them for yourself. Some were great and others less than wonderful, but they all had their own unique abilities that follow the same input commands. This led to a variety of ways to play the game without needing to memorize different button combos for different characters. Maybe you bring Rivali into battle and utilize his ability to fly, or you use Impa's copy ability to plow through hordes of enemies with her rune-powered doubles. Since you can usually bring multiple characters into a fight, this gives you a chance to play as everybody at least a few times. One feature I want to highlight here is the military training camp, a place where you can visit to pay to upgrade your characters. Now, while this seems like a cheap option on the surface, I found it great in the latter parts of the game where I had to play as a character I didn't enjoy, therefore haven't used a lot and thus were underleveled. Being able to bring that character up to speed quickly was a godsend compared to grinding that character up through replays of previous missions. Depending on the mission, you might need to play as multiple characters at the same time. Bringing up the map during a mission allows you to give commands to your allies, which normally means sending somebody to a marker on the map, positioning you to switch to that character once you're done with the task at hand. Being able to switch on the fly like that is the perfect way to stay in the action and meant I didn't have to spend too much time traversing the somewhat large maps. The maps may change locales throughout the land of Hyrule, but mission structure is somewhat simple and usually the same. Most major missions start off with a lot of points on a map asking you to take care of an objective, and this usually involves taking over a stronghold or eliminating a specific boss creature. These story missions average around 20 minutes to complete, making them perfect to knock out one or two during a play session before taking a break. On the overworld map, however, there are smaller missions available asking you to defeat a certain number of enemies within a time limit, or by using specific characters, weapons, and/or attacks. These smaller missions are a nice palate cleanser and help break up the flow of the meatier story parts. Lastly, you have points of interest objectives on the map that you can complete by collecting the right type of item, of which there are dozens. Most, if not all, the items you can collect in Breath of the Wild, everything from fish and lizards to mushrooms and gemstones, make a return here. Turning in items does everything from adding hearts to your health gauge, unlocking combo moves, to bringing in shopkeepers to sell additional items. Even cooking and crafting are here as well, as meals before a battle add buffs, and you can fuse weapons together at your local blacksmith to build up their stats and perks. It's a lot, in a good way, as it never seems there isn't a ton of stuff to do. From a performance standpoint, everything runs well enough, but generally controls feel a little loose. And that's not to say they're bad, just maybe not what you would expect when running around as Link in Hyrule Field, especially compared to Breath of the Wild. I feel like that's done intentionally to add to the frenetic nature of combat and just give everything a more hectic vibe, so I'm not knocking it, but it is worth mentioning. The frame rate for me personally is not an issue, even if it does dip pretty heavily at times. Usually when confronting a camp with 100 enemies and chucking bombs everywhere will cause it to stutter. It got bad, but it never made the game unplayable. There was usually so much spectacle going on it was fine and caught back up rather quickly. I even spent a few missions playing in handheld mode to see if it stuttered more, and it's nice to see it was pretty consistent to playing in dock mode with a small resolution drop. This made dock mode, of course, my preferred method of playing. As my journey with the game is starting to come to its conclusion, all said and done, Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity will take anywhere from 20 to 25 hours on a rush playthrough to a little over 30 if you take your time. Completionists will have a lot more to go back to, of course, but for me, as you all know from a lot of my videos here, 20 to 30 hours is right above my sweet spot, which means I know I'll enjoy this game long before it feels like a chore or I drop off of it entirely. There's also the potential for DLC content in the future, which would add most likely more playable characters and even more value to an already great game. On that note, Age of Calamity is a great way to get that Zelda fix in a fun and fast way while we wait for the next full-fledged Zelda game to hit shelves. Have any questions on the game I didn't go over, or have any thoughts or comments on my critique? Let me know in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed my take on Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. This is Tom signing off, and I'll see you in the next level.